Hello and welcome to CBT Nuggets Cisco Switch Certification Series. My name is Jeremy Chara and I'll be hanging out with you throughout this series. And what I want to do in this opening nugget of the entire thing is just talk about the series as a whole. Talk about Cisco certification, the new CCNP certification, what that means, what's the differences from the old one, why did Cisco do this? And then I want to address a big question that I'm sure some of you have, which is, well, what's new in this Cisco Switch series that is different from the Cisco BCMSN? And then finally, I want to talk about some of the best things that you can do to get the most from this series, talk a little bit about building a home lab and all of that. So let's get going. So let me start off by talking about Cisco certification. Cisco certification, first off, if you are not interested in it, I think you should be, just because it's one of those super valuable things that you can do for your career. Now, I'm not saying you will get certified and suddenly businesses will be calling you, somehow they got your number, and you're just going to, no, I'm sorry, $500,000 a year is not enough. I would also like 100 vacation days a year. I mean, it's nothing like that. But it is definitely a huge advantage because Cisco is one of the only certification companies that provides incentives for organizations to hire you, such that as organizations hire different Cisco certified people at different levels, they move up in their partner level with Cisco and they get different discount levels off of Cisco gears, some of which can be very significant to an organization. So it's definitely it's not only great for your career, but it's demanded by organizations. It's in high demand, and there's just an aura about Cisco certification. When you're in a technology world, even if you just have a CCNA, the kind of entry-level certification, even with the Microsoft folk, if you're talking to Microsoft people and you're like, oh yeah, I'm Cisco certified, there's just kind of like there's just like a, ooh, wow, really? When'd you get that? How'd you do it? It's kind of like I don't know. It's an unknown territory for most people, so it's sort of just got that aura about it of you must really know what you're doing. Now, I'm not saying if you talk to the general public, like you're in Walmart or something, and you go, yeah, I'm a Cisco certified, and they're going to go, okay. People would recognize Microsoft certifications far better to the layman. I'll say that. So I just want to talk about flyby updates to the Cisco certification track. It's in high demand, as I mentioned. 2007 is when the CCNA program went through a major review. And you might be thinking, well, it's we're in 2010, 11, and beyond. I mean, why are we talking 2007? I would say 2007 really marked when Cisco got serious about their certification program. Not that they, again, don't hear me wrong, not that they haven't been serious about it, but it's at that point became a really challenging and really real-world style exam. And it kind of marked a major renewal that they went through all their certifications. And that's when 2007 is when they broke it into two separate certifications for the CCNA, which is the CCENT and the CCNA. It became much more difficult because Cisco's logic is, if you don't know how to do this in the real world, then you shouldn't really pass the exam. And so you're seeing simulations take on much more complexity than previous. I mean, seriously, I got CCNA certified in 2000? Has it been that long? Yeah. When I took the exam, literally, well, I'll just say this. I got my CCNA and CCNP, all of them in a month. Just because I'm a good book studier and I could memorize good facts. But I will tell you, back in 2000 when I got my CCNP, if you threw me into a closet and said, can you set up this network with a WAN link and just basic EIGRP routing, I would have said, no. No, I don't. I can do it on paper. Sure, I can draw some diagrams. But yeah, so nowadays it's not like that. It's very real world. And they're doing the same thing with the CCNP. So let me talk a little bit about. I mentioned at the bottom, in 2008, the CCNA specialties came out. That's the CCNA voice, CCNA security, all those kind of things. And more recently, I'll say 2009-ish, 10-ish, is when they revised the CCNP to be 3 exams. So let me talk about that. So most recently, Cisco has done some major revisions to the CCNP certification track. They did it based on a lot of feedback, a lot of real-world meetings where they met with organizations, seeing what people expected of the CCNP and all that kind of thing. And one of the biggest things that they did, and I applaud them for it, I think it's great, they took the CCNP certification from 4 exams in the previous rendition, down to 3 exams. They boiled it down to Cisco Switch, Cisco Route, and T-Shoot, which is troubleshooting, which is a huge advancement in my opinion because over time the CCNP got muddy. And what I mean by that is new technologies came out like voice over IP and new security advancements, and it's natural to say, well, the normal person should know about this. It's good to know about voice over IP. It's good to know about security and and so they kind of started splicing all of these pieces into there. And before long, you had certifications in CCNP, or I should say exams in the CCNP, like ONT, optimizing network. Optimizing, I can't even remember what it stands for. ONT, it was optimizing network something. And essentially it was an entire certification mainly on quality of service, which when people took the CCVP certification, they went through an entire certification called quality of service, and they would go, this is exactly the same stuff I learned in the CCNP. Why am I having to take this whole thing all over again? What's the scoop? And Cisco says, you're right. Why are we making you take that? So they took the CCNP and this revision back to where it came from, switching and routing, the core of it all. And then of course now you have an exam based on troubleshooting, and I would say troubleshooting is the most real world of all, simply because it takes everything that you know from Cisco Route and Cisco Switch and puts it together into a real world bucket, makes stuff explode, and then says fix it. Which I'm telling you, after being in Cisco a while, that's about as real world as it gets, because stuff like that happens all the time as a consultant's role. So that's what the CCNP is. It is revised. It is a new track. However, when you're thinking, is everything changed? For instance, Cisco Route, the CCNP exam, used to be called BSCI, and people would say, well, what did you change? What did you add? And honestly, Cisco's response is not much. What we really did was take stuff out. We took out the stuff that wasn't directly related to routing and routing protocols, and things like ISIS, routing protocols that are just rarely used and people didn't need to know about. Same thing with Cisco Switch. Well, what did you change in Cisco Switch from BCMSN? Cisco's response is, well, nothing really. I mean, it's really the same certification. It's just focused on switch technology. So the big thing that I want to convey to you is, what's new in Cisco Switch compared to BCMSN? Well, not much. I did some enhancements here and there, but really the core of it all is BCMSN. So now let me put all those pieces together into a how to get the most from this series, and I'm sure many of you are thinking, okay, so if BCMSN is the same as Cisco Switch, what about the exam? Is the exam very different and all of that? And what I can say with the non-disclosure agreement in mind is no. When I took the Cisco Switch exam, it was the exact same exam as BCMSN. Well, and mind you, there's a big pool of questions and all of that, but the questions were just the same BCMSN questions, just with Cisco Switch titles. So no, the exam is not super different, super hard, anything like that. It really has just been renamed and repackaged as Cisco Switch. So putting this all together, the best thing that I could do was to take the same BCMSN series and just add pieces to it, which if you've looked at the series outline, you've got that idea. It's really the BCMSN CCNP series with 4 or 5 different nuggets added to just add some updates, some new things that have happened since I think I set up and recorded BCMSN in 2008-ish time frame. So it's not even that old. So yeah, it's an enhanced version. So when you're going through this, number one thing that you can do to get the most from the nuggets is to go through them again and again and again. So one of the best things about CBT nuggets is you can watch them a million times and solidify the information versus just hearing somebody lecture one time at a conference or something like that. So as you go through, one thing I do, it helps me, is I just jot down key points that I hear. I like using Microsoft OneNote. I've fallen in love with that program. I think OneNote is by far the best program Microsoft has ever made. And so I use that to jot down my notes and just put them in little bullet points format so I can remember them. And then of course the biggest thing is to build a lab. Now, when I re-recorded Cisco Route, a lot of question emerged about that was, well, why did you do such a major overhaul to Cisco Route versus Cisco BSCI? Well, Cisco Route was really a test for me because I really wanted to do something where I could put in labs and set up lab environments, and I used GNS3 with this Cisco Route series to do that. Well, with switches, GNS3 does not emulate switches, or at least not well. So what I would suggest is you can build a fairly inexpensive lab where you'll be able to try just about everything I do in this series using, I would suggest, a Cisco 3550 and a 2950. Just two devices. Don't really need any more than that. The reason I suggest both of those guys is the 3550 will definitely be the more expensive piece. That is your layer 3 switch. That's where you can test your inner VLAN routing, setting up routing protocols on the switch, using essentially all the layer 3 functions of switch and multi-layer switching that we're going to talk about in this series. The 2950 can just act as a separate switch that you can use VLAN trunking on. You can set up VTP, you can do VLAN pruning, test your VLANs, all that kind of stuff between the two different devices. Now, I chose those models simply because they're no longer manufactured by Cisco. They are end of life, which makes them much cheaper and much more easily found on eBay and things like that. Second off, they are fairly modern code, and Cisco is still releasing new iOS versions for them. So you can always get the latest and greatest code for them. Are there cheaper ways to go? Yeah, totally. I would say you could, you could go with like a 2900 XL. You can get those for like $20-30 off of eBay, which have almost everything, almost the same command set as the 2950. You could even go with the good old, what were the 1900 series, 1912 and the 1924. Those were the original, the 10 megabit per second guys. You could probably get those for $5 plus shipping. So nonetheless, there are cheaper ways to go, but that's what I used, and that's what I really liked. Now, of course, the last two pieces, and I say this at every single one of the series that I do, the best way to get the most from this series is to dig deeper and fall in love. Meaning, as I go through the series, I'm sure there's things that are going to pop up in your mind, and you're going to, oh, well, I wonder if you do that, what would happen? Or I wonder, you're going to have questions and going further and things like that. And I would say, do it. Dig deeper. That's how you're going to be like, oh, that's awesome. And create your own notes, create your own experiences with it. That's how you really, really solidify this and understand the technology. And I won't get. I know some of these intros to the series. I've talked on and on about how when I first got into Cisco in general, I really didn't like it, just because it was totally different. I was a Microsoft guy with my Windows 2000 certification, and I was like, oh, group policies and all of this are the way to go, and it wasn't until I really understood Cisco that I was like, Cisco is awesome. And it's almost impossible for me to do Microsoft stuff because I'm just like, this is so lame compared to Cisco. I would love to be sitting in a closet setting up a new router or an ASA firewall than setting up user accounts or something like that. It's just it's what you understand fully is what you fall in love with. So that's the dig deeper and fall in love are so closely linked that the people that are best at their jobs are the people that love it, and they go home and, oh man, I should show you a picture. I don't have a little webcam right now, but maybe I will later in the series. I have this home lab that I keep revising, and my most recent revision is I went with a less is more theme, and my home lab, I should bring up a picture. Hang on 1 second. Okay, there we go. I just grabbed my cell phone and took a picture of this. Now this, I have to say, I'm very proud. This is actually messy right now because I was using some of these. You see these little cables that were drooped over here. I was using those guys for some lab stuff and some testing that I was doing. But my new theme for my home lab is less is more. You can see I've got my incoming DSL connection right here. Comes over here to this UC520. Oh, moment of silence for the UC520. Okay, there it was. That device is the most awesome device I've ever seen in my life. It's a voice over IP management system running Call Manager Express. It has Unity Express in there. This above it, oh, by the way, it does routing, VPN, blah, blah, blah. You can see this is my Edge firewall, the ASA 5505, and then this is my SAN. I have a little iOmega, a couple terabyte SAN that I'm using for VMware ESX servers. It's awesome. It's awesome because it all fits on the top shelf and it's quiet. My wife walked into the office and she goes, "This is weird. It's quiet. Something's broken." And she said the fish tank's overflowing because I have a big saltwater fish tank and it makes a lot of noise. And if the power goes out, it goes completely quiet, but there's a siphon and it'll start overflowing if you don't get power back to it. And in no time, she goes, it's really weird. So my theme is less is more, and that's my latest rendition of my home office, which is actually migrated down from this, and it's much less heat and expense, and well, not expense. That UC520 was pricey, but nonetheless. Why am I showing you this? I'm showing you this that when I come home, this is my job is my home. I have Cisco IP phones in every single room. I have multiple VLANs set up for Wi-Fi and my voice over IP traffic and quality of service. Why do I need this? No, I don't. And I've been informed of that many times when people come over. They're like, "Why do you need this?" I'm like, "I don't know. I just love it. I think it's cool to be able to do this. So much so that I go home and I learn and experiment with new stuff that I know it sounds cheesy, but you take it from your home into the real world and you're like, oh yeah, I totally did this at my house and this works well, and you can add a bunch to it that way. So the more you love something, the better you're going to be at it. That's just natural. So take all those, put them together. That's how you're going to get the most from this series. So let me wrap up by saying, what is Cisco Switch in CBT Nuggets world? It is the Cisco BCMSN series, which is just like Cisco has geared their exam objectives to, repackaged with 4 or 5 new nuggets on there that allow it to add some updated technology. For example, Cisco introduced some monitoring functions in the Cisco Switch exam, like SNMP and IPSLA and syslog. Things, I mean, big gaping holes that were previously in BCMSN where, yeah, you can build a switch architecture, but do you really know what's going on? So you'll see things like that added. You'll see some updated things on, for instance, 6500 supervisor engine redundancy. Just again, some bigger picture designs that have emerged over the recent years that have been added to Cisco Switch. But at the core, everything is still BCMSN. So I know you'll enjoy the series and gain a lot from it, and I wish you luck. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.